Okay, I need a motion to adjourn the Veterans Exemption hearing. Mr. Cooley, Mr. Dolan, thank you. Discussion? Okay, I need a motion to, hold on 1 second, let me get I need a motion to open call the order our workshop meeting, please. Okay, that's Mr. Cooley and Mr. Devenow. Mrs. Maureen.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, first item on our agenda tonight is report items. Superintendent of Schools, Dr.
Thank you. Item number 1, you have a purple sheet at your spot. The class size data as of today. There are still a few families that are saying that they're closing soon and have not, so there is an anticipation of an increase at Cherry Avenue Kindergarten with 1 more, and at second grade 1 more, as well as
Cherry?
yep, and 6th and 7th grade at the middle school, where the family has 4 children. But they have not closed yet. Last we heard might be tomorrow. If that's the case, the children will start on Monday. Again, as I said at the last meeting, I think in 1st grade, the current kindergarten, Cherry, needs to be 4 sections. If there continues to be the same number, no less the possibility of growth.
So if any more students come to Cherry, are we going to recommend they go to Sunrise Drive or Sunrise Drive would be the most logical choice, but at least kindergarten?
I don't think we can recommend, if the board wants to say they definitely have to go to another building, we can do that for the remainder of the year. That will cost busing, but it can be done.
Well, how many,
I mean,
where did
Never go into that.
where do they live?
West Sayville, most of them.
Yeah, you can't, where you gonna send them? You can't send them to high school. You really can't, I mean.
You can,
it's
yeah.
one
I'm just making the recommendation.
Yeah, no.
But we can send them to the school.
You can, except.
You have 21, 20, and 20.
Sunrise Drive certainly has tons of space.
Got a lot of space.
But if you send them from Cherry, who is way over here, over to Sunrise Drive,
Why don't we, depends
it
where
would
they,
it would have to be, because or else you're lifting up the numbers in Lincoln. It would have to go to Sunrise.
yeah.
And that's, you know, it's kindergarten. I think we have to send them to the class.
Oh, no,
It would be.
When do you want to split the class?
Oh, this year we can't.
Well, that's what I'm saying, if you have another one.
I think what we're talking about is the possibility of any new students that move in for the remainder of this year, put them in another school and move them back in 1st grade. That's what I think.
That's what
That's what Mr. Stone was saying.
And then we,
you're looking at 26, 26, and possibly 26, and if you had 3 more.
No.
one more.
Right now,
The
it's 1
number
more.
is,
Right now, go to a maximum.
any more than 1 more,
Right now.
it doesn't,
But
And in 1st grade, we're gonna bring the child back.
people could come in
yeah.
next week and say, we just bought a house and we have a kindergarten. And
But we go the opposite way too, they can move out.
and we live in Cherry Avenue. Well, that actually did help a little bit in 4th grade in Cherry. We did have 1 student move away.
But it's terrible for the kids, it's also terrible for the kid to be raised with 27 other kids,
26.
26 other children.
What is your recommendation?
My recommendation is not to split them from the building. It's not ideal to have that. I would increase the aid time to give the teachers support in kindergarten with the tasks of, opening their juice boxes and wiping their nose and their jackets and things that have to be done by the teacher if the aide isn't there, and save the teacher some time.
How many hours are you having in now? Hour and a half?
I believe 3.
3 hours per?
3 hours per class.
Because you have the additional transportation costs, you have the bus going back and forth, so that's
And
more.
then-
yeah.
Other than then go with the aides, we get more.
How about a certified assistant? I mean,
We don't have a class of employee called the teacher assistant. If we were to do that, we would have to open up negotiations, create that class of employee, get a salary.
So our only option is the,
In kindergarten, I think the aide serves the purpose. You know, I don't want to talk for the teacher, but a lot of their time, I just spent 45 minutes in Ms. Anaya's class this morning. And you know, small tasks like going to snack, there's opening up the juice boxes, there's cleaning crumbs off the table, there's putting the water bottle that was left there for 2 days in the backpacks. This is stuff
Buy the
that,
shoes, put the coats on,
What?
put the crayons away.
but
you
this
have-
is stuff that an aide can do to save the teacher's time for the teacher.
But you have to realize, these children are learning a lot in kindergarten,
Oh, they are?
and if you have an
And we-
aide that can handle some of the,
Instructional?
no, some of the non-instructional things, but I think really, well, at this particular point, we're gonna have to increase the aides. Well, they have their specials, maybe four or five members. It was a class of 26, but we're going to do it. I think it's necessary. For what they're learning, I see what they learn, because I have a kindergarten, luckily someone's drive, but they learn a tremendous amount. And I think we're gonna have to really, when they get in this size of this, I can't handle two at the same time, I don't know how the teachers do it, 26, 5-year-olds.
They do a great job with it.
They do an incredible job, an incredible job, I've been able to do. Right, and they're learning a tremendous amount, I have to give them kudos.
I think,
They're
too,
writing, they're spelling, they're,
it's short-sighted not to, because we've pushed, or Common Core's pushed so much down on the lower grade levels.
yeah.
In order to remediate later on, it's an increased cost to the district, because you're gonna have to increase services, you're gonna have to, and it's much harder to remediate something rather than catch it early and have an early intervention at an early age, so, I agree.
I will talk to the principal and I'll actually meet with the
We're walking it
three teachers
another hour.
and I'll,
No, I think I got it.
Whatever they feel.
well, I want to see what they feel is
Yeah.
appropriate.
Good.
And I'll report back to you Thursday.
Great.
What about next year, do you have any idea what kindergarten classes are coming in next year?
All we have is the projections from BOCES, which are pretty accurate, and it's projected for 181 students.
So true.
We'll have further discussion, you know, when we get budget time in February on
181.
181, which should be 8 sections, but it needs to be balanced. We can't go through another situation like we have in kindergarten this year. So I will have recommendations, hopefully the efficiency committee has recommendations.
I just want to know what's going on. Water.
It seems that every house that's being bought and sold is in West Sayville. Crazy. And they all have kindergartens.
Good neighbors. They love cherry every before.
Okay, item number 2. I sent you an email, it was in the Newsday today, but we have 2 Intel semifinalists in our RISE program. That's a first. We've had 1 before, but never 2. There are only 300, not just the 50 states, but all territories.
300.
Guam too. And I think there is a kid from Guam that received it, Puerto Rico. Yeah. So there are some students from those areas that are achieving. There were 94, or 5, I forget exactly, from New York State. So just short of the third of the
That's-
students
It's amazing.
that are, Intel semifinalists are coming from New York State. So I kind of disagree with the governor that our education system is broken.
And about half of that, 45 or 44,
44
are from Long
from
Island.
Long Island. It's 43, there's one girl who lives in Rockville Center, goes to school in Queens.
Okay.
So the city wants to count her, we want to count.
Queens is full.
43, 44.
Which is very impressive.
Do we have a breakdown for Suffolk and Nassau, or not that big town, but I guess it would be 20 and 20?
You can go online and look at the kids.
And the,
Most of them honestly are from, Roslyn, from Syosset. Great.
and a young age, 17, I think they were both born.
Well, they're all seniors.
Well, still senior,
Yeah.
well, still 17
And
years
it's
old. She's fine.
Nick Cowan and Emily Fornin. There were 3 other students that were in the competition that didn't happen to win. So we had 5 students that applied, which is
Pretty good.
exceptional. So I think things are looking up for our research program. And by the way, one of the students that didn't get the semifinalist, she won a contest in Los Angeles last June that gave her a full scholarship to Drexel.
Wow.
Allison Murphy, that's John Murphy's granddaughter.
Is that right?
So, coming into her senior year, she knew she had a full scholarship. The RISE program has been doing very well for all students. On January 24th, we have the Suffolk County School Superintendent's Advocacy Breakfast at, I don't think it's Sherwood anymore, but we'll call it Sherwood forever, over by Costco. So, yeah, I think, John, you've been close.
Yeah, it's the regional support center or something.
Sure.
Otherwise known as Sherwood.
Rick Timms is going to be presenting, as well as the new parts of the Part 154 regulations for English language learners, or English ENL, what's that, English as a new language?
English.
That's the, I think, the new politically correct term. But these new regulations, although one might say they're necessary, is another very, very large unfunded mandate from the state. And, it's not crazy expensive, but it's going to cost us some money here. But places like CI and Brentwood, it could cause them 30 more teachers.
Is this the one with the non-English speaking
Yeah.
company minors?
Well, they're part
Part
of
of
it,
it.
but they're just,
That,
that's just
if
a portion.
there's more than 20 per.
If there's more than 20 in grade level with the same language, you have to supply a bilingual content area teacher. And the biggest problem for my colleagues is they don't exist. How do you put something in the classroom if they don't exist? You can't hire them because they don't exist. So what they're going to have to do is get a fluent person in that language and a certified teacher and so that's
So,
Right.
translator and they,
Right.
there's some legislation he proposed in the federal government. I think it's Steve Israel and Peter King to help some of them.
That was for the unaccompanied minors, it was $12,000. We didn't have any unaccompanied
That
minors.
had nothing to do with this.
No, this is different. This is any student that's not a native language, English speaker.
But most of the students coming in are unaccompanied minors or undocumented?
No.
I'm not sorry, undocumented, whatever on these, or unaccompanied minors?
No, most of them are accompanied by their families.
Okay.
We just had a large influx in places like South Huntington, Riverhead, Brentwood, CI, of Hempstead.
Remember, we had 500 new students.
New students, right?
Yeah. There was a spike this year of the unaccompanied.
Right.
But their needs, whether you're unaccompanied at 16 with no formal education and don't speak the language, or you're with your family and you have, what's the difference?
So there is a difference, that's right. They have to be educated.
Yep.
What we do. Which is,
That the teachers.
that's different, that's a totally different discussion.
And on February 7th, we have our legislative breakfast at Longwood. And I'd like a few board members on both of these.
I'm in, for sure.
Yeah, I have you in charge of
Are they gonna get scripted questions again this year?
I haven't usually asked me for questions
Pretty
at
good.
Longwood, but they haven't asked yet. so.
Legislative breakfast to discuss school issues with our legislators, and they want us to see the questions beforehand. That kind of scratch your head, right?
I'm sure that will still be.
I'll stay on script.
And that ends my superintendent.
If any board member hasn't had the chance to see, hear Rick Tim speak, you have to find, I don't think it's a limited amount of seats, but he's a really good speaker. That's it. Next item on the agenda tonight is Board of Education discussion. And under that, we have bond discussion. At our last meeting, prior to with the recess, the administrators gave us their recommendations. If anyone has any questions or wants to discuss where we're moving with this and how we're going to go forward.
And basically, I think we left it to the board give us guidance on if the, just under 17 million, I think it was, John?
It was
Not the million,
19.1
Sorry, just under 20.
just under 19.2 million.
19.2 million
Correct.
is the number we want to go with. And we would like to have a resolution before the board next Thursday. We want to have time for road shows and public meeting.
A couple questions I did have, and then specifically, the old junior high, the air conditioning, as well as the turf field at the old junior high. I have, the question is, will it be able, even though it's not, we don't have any of our students there?
We believe so, John. We believe that that's a field, that's a annex field from the high school, because we only use it for our high school sports. And there's not enough existing room on our high school field. So we've been working with the architect on that, and we believe that that's how the project will be followed with S&P.
And the air conditioning?
The air conditioning at this particular point is going to be up on the state. It is a, the building does have students. It's not our students, but they still have students. So we will file it and wait for determination from the state. And as we discussed during the bond discussions, that when you submit projects of this nature, there's going to be things that are eligible for aid. There's going to be things that are not eligible for aid. And that's why we, as every project is submitted, the state comes up with an approved amount, capital project amount, and that is the amount that's subject to aid. If we get into a situation like we have in the past, where any project is not aidable or the state challenges us on it, we will take that project back to the board as we did with the high school wellness center. And, we made a decision to go forward. So,
What was taken out of the bond? Exactly, simply.
really want me to go through everything?
Because.
We want to give you a couple
It's,
quarters.
it's basically, we went with the bond committee that was formed, that looked at it, broke it down into priorities. We went through those priorities. Most of priorities 1 and 2 are included. We included some priorities from number 3, item 3, namely the air conditioning at the old junior high. We came up with the plan that for the univents throughout the district, we wanted to pull them out of the bond and do them through capital projects, commit $800,000 a year, and do it through the budget each year. Blind ceilings, that's something else that came out. We'll do that in piecework through the budget and special projects. But most of priority 1, priority 2, and there were only a couple of big ticket items. For the air conditioning in the high school auditorium, I believe, was a priority 3. We included that in our recommendation.
Now, the blind ceilings, which I thought were pretty important, we took that out. Will we get the same funding? It's not for the bond, but still the 6 to 8%.
Still get 800.
If it's done through a capital project, we would continue doing that. If it's done through the budget, it's not going to be able per se, but it's done through a capital line.
It's on the capital line.
Correct. If it's done through capital line, if it's done through a special projects line through buildings and grounds, something we don't file with the state, that's not subject to building aid.
Before we continue, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell community members, if you want to follow along on your handheld device or iPad or whatever you call it, or Wi-Fi, and Mary, correct me if I'm wrong. Or you can look there, it's guest is the,
It will pop up the Wi-Fi as guest and you sign in.
and the password is guest,
As
so
guest.
I apologize,
Nice
I played
and easy.
earlier.
John, I just want to listen to your golden voice. You know?
I'm going to start singing soon, Pat.
Okay.
Thank you, sorry.
John, I have a question. Tom made a great point, especially since the last 3 or 4 meetings, class size has been a major issue. Understanding that the money that goes into the bond goes a long way because most of it is aidable, because it's amortized over a 15-year period. If we were able to pull another $1 million out, and this is just back of the envelope calculations, which works out to roughly somewhere in the low 70s per year. And then you figure the aid ratio is somewhere in the mid to high 50s. So essentially, it's saving the district of roughly $37,000 a year. Would that translate directly to our ability to pay for additional staff under the cap?
Well, I think, Paul, what you have to look at is that, when you look at the debt service and where your debt service is and what your debt service will be, there's a delta there. And what we proposed, the current debt service is about $1,750,000 a year. We have over $2 million expiring. So, obviously, you could certainly use that or any portion of that should the board decide, but you gotta realize you need to be within the gap. So, this is not going to affect because the formula, you take out building aid and debt service, so it's a net cost that goes into the gap formula. So it's not really going to have a great impact. My personal feeling is from looking at this, I would hate to try to sell a bond referendum and tie it with the concept of we're going to be reducing class size. It's just, we're mixing apples and orange. I understand the concept, but I strongly feel we need to keep the issues separate.
Thank you.
One is a recurring expense, one is.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Well, it's a
both- no,
decline-
both
it's
are
declining
expenses,
expense.
and they are separate.
Salaries,
No.
But it's declining,
Yeah, it's good.
it's slowly declining over a time period.
But they're not separate. I mean, if you can reduce your annual debt service, you can use that same,
for the first year, it's good.
A percentage.
And it goes up.
well, but you still have it, you know,
It's difficult to sustain.
it's, the question is how much debt service
You want
is the
that.
right debt service?
Is anyone considering moving any, making other changes to it? Huh?
I mean, I already said my piece, because you know, I was hoping to stay around 17 million. I mean, right now we're at, you know, 19. But, I mean, the rest of the board is comfortable with that number.
Well, I think we started with 42.
Well, that was never good.
You can't say that. Well, I've been sitting here for many years, and many years that.
Some years it could have been.
Presented, it's been, you know, they haven't cut it. And this year we did cut a lot out, so that's not true.
What we did 20 years ago is let them know what it was now.
Right, well, I'm not talking about 20 years ago. I'm talking about the last
15
one.
years ago. And we saw significant improvements in our buildings, from middle
Yeah.
school, to high school, to
Well, we have,
junior high.
if we don't maintain them, then we're gonna have significant issues down the road.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, and I was on the opposite end, I'd rather see a 25, and so it's having things cut out, you know, that I wanted to see back in, and this is obviously a compromise by all of us, either way. My question is, would we or should we put some of those things back in on a separate referendum, like the other turf fields, to allow community members to vote on that, if they want that? You know, that's,
Above and beyond the 19.
so it would be above and beyond the 19.2, but to offer that to the community members, and obviously contingent on
Yeah,
the other one
but
passed.
if you go-
But it has to be tied to, I'm
Sorry.
sorry.
Yeah, if you go for anything more, then our debt service is gonna be growing, and it's not gonna be neutral.
Mhm.
You know, I think we have two philosophies here. One is to keep the debt service neutral. And my philosophy is try and reduce it a little bit, you know. So I think if you're adding more to it, then we're gonna be, you know, creating more cost.
But just hope we're not cutting so much that it's gonna affect us that, like, this morning, from what I understand, there was, the ceiling was very important. I spoke to a couple of the principals. There are some issues.
Well, it can be done on the capital projects over the
Yeah, well, I
next
hope-
5 or
I
6
hope
years.
so.
John.
If we have money.
Yes, yes, it's, you know, I mean, we always prioritize, and, you know, there's a reality of how much we can do at once. And, you know, we've been going over the last 15 years, we've been going from one referendum to the other. So we've done a lot of capital projects in the last 15 years. And, you know, which is a good thing, but we're doing it in a very managed fashion, where it's controlling debt service. We're looking at those windows of opportunities where debt service is decreasing, and we're not putting additional burden on the taxpayers. So it's done very strategically and managed very well.
That's it. Call. All right, what do we have to go from here?
We need another.
Probably comfortable with that. Comfortable with that. Let's see,
Is the community comfortable with the 19?
That'd be a nice-
We didn't get up to it to say something, I guess.
That's a good design.
And what are we gonna do?
Election.
I shared my concerns about the air conditioning at the old junior high school. So, consensus of the board is. Anybody want to change anything? Well, if we have to tell, you have to tell our administrator something, yeah. Tom said what he felt, the chief said what he felt, so. We need to,
Just
what's
hope.
that?
I go along with the condition.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other items for board discussion? Hey, I sort of played the old Mills, at the junior high, man. I gotta say something. We got some amazing kids. We got some amazing kids. It was, wasn't Wizard of Oz, it was
The Wiz.
The
the
Wiz.
Wiz, oh, thank you, the Wiz. Whoever the lion was. My God, what an act. I mean, anytime you go to plays, you go to musicals, it just, it gives me goosebumps. It's a great opportunity to see the talent of our kids. It was pretty good.
I do have a question regarding the issue about the software upgrade that we have to do to the business office.
Yeah.
What is there a bidding process for that, or do we have free
So-
comparisons?
Through motions.
That's on BOCES, they're on contract.
Okay, so it's already approved by the state.
Correct.
Can we get Nate back on that too?
Correct. If we go through BOCES, we'll get BOCES.
Do we have to vote on a resolution?
We'll bring a resolution to the board at the next meeting. What we will be doing is we will be increasing the budget for that dollar amount to fund the purchase of the software and the one-time charges for the current 14-15 school year.
There's no other competitive software out there that can do the same thing?
There's other software out there, John, but nothing that's going to give us the resources that we need to keep the district's books and records where they need to be.
And then this is the only one that BOCES is supporting, right? Or do they have other options?
Well, they have other options, but the softwares is not, it's not something that we would choose. You know, the intimation system that we have now that BOCES supports, it is not a user-friendly system to use. We discussed that, the board would like, you know, many things that we have problems producing with that software. There's another software system out there called WinCap, and that is, some districts use that. But the majority of the districts that are in public K-12 education use the finance manager software. As we talked about at the last meeting, they're local. They service 400 and some odd school districts across New York State. They understand the reporting for New York State, so we're not dealing with an out-of-state company like with Pentimation. They're located someplace out of state, so it's very difficult to have them understand New York State reporting requirements, and it's always been a challenge.
With that, you have to keep consideration that this is all part of the state reporting for APPR and teacher performance. All of that is tied into all of this data within the state. So if you don't have an easy interface from our data to the state, you're just going to spend a ton of money in person hours changing the format of that data. So you turn that into part of, you know, more unfunded mandates.
Okay,
Well,
can we document that?
Hmm?
Can we document that? We have two options for BOCES.
Mhm.
What's the cost of the two options? Pros and cons? You know, because that's the first time I'm hearing that there are two options. I thought there was only one option.
No, we did, the staff, business office staff, along with the personnel staff, went and spent some time reviewing the system, reviewing
Okay,
finance.
yeah, and that's your preference.
Okay,
But I'm saying, for me to approve it, I would like to know, you know, this is what one system is costing us, the other system costs, what features, just like what you just said. I mean, yes, if it's in line with the APR and all the issues, then it's a no-brainer. But it's a substantial investment we're making, and I want to be comfortable with that.
I could bring the board back a proposal for WinCap, and then we would have to go through a process of reviewing the software. I know that I speak to a lot of my colleagues in various districts that might use that particular software. There's a lot of people that are not happy with it, So, I mean, if the board wants to put it on hold, we'll put it on hold. But the risk that we run at this particular time is not having our system converted by the end of June. So, I mean, that's, you know, that's up to the board.
Why is June the,
Because July 1st, we no longer have support by Pennsylvania.
So
So the game plan it's going to take, to do this conversion and to change the account code structure that we have into a new software system, has to start now. Because in the beginning of June, we're going to be looking to run these systems parallel. Because on July 1st, we're going to be pulling the plug on Pennsylvania. We're not going to have any support. So, you know, we'll be a ship out in the ocean with no engine.
How do they do the conversion? Do they come in and help you with the conversion?
Oh, yeah, it's all part of the one-time cost. It's a lot of things that we're going to be initiating, and we're going to come up with a transition plan. And each phase of the conversion, the data conversion, is going to be done in a very controlled environment. I've been through this before at very, very large districts, and it's a bear. It's a bear. You got to make sure that you maintain the integrity of your data, and that's the most important thing for the school district. You can't lose the integrity. The other challenge we have is, you know, how do we maintain the history for the district? That's another significant challenge. If all of our history is on Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is no longer going to be supported, we're working with BOCES now to come up with some type of alternative solution on how we can still have access to our history data. Because we need that for payroll purposes, for retirement purposes, retirement systems, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, do you have, is Pennsylvania's on, do we own Pennsylvania or lease it from BOCES?
No, basically, we have a license for Pennsylvania with X number of users. We would go through the same scenario with finance manager. We would contract that through BOCES. Right now, BOCES maintains our servers on their server, off-site. We don't have that here. It's advantageous to us from a disaster recovery standpoint. Like, God forbid anything ever happened to our servers, we can be the financial aspect of the district can continue, and we can be up and running by just working at any other location.
You don't have mirror service where we have one here and they have one?
No. The servers, and they're responsible for backing up our data, and they're responsible for the disaster recovery. And they have the duplicate service that they maintain at our
The
data.
biggest problem is now that they have everything, how are we gonna
Well, we're working with them on programs now, that they may be able to download some of the data and convert them to, you know, Excel files.
It's just
You know, their computer experts are working on that.
just like carry over or swap over with?
No, the only thing that finance manager could bring over, they could bring over some of our history, and they could bring over a few years of history, but it's only in summary format.
So is it
So-
manual data entry that's gonna have to be done, or is it just?
No, it's not manual data. They can bring over some of the history, but again, it's in summary format,
Mhm.
which means that when I look up an account code, I'm only going to be able to get a total number of what we spent. I'm not going to be able to click another button and see what was in that code. So we're trying to maintain the integrity of the history files, so we have that information.
Currently.
Now, going forward with the new
Correct.
system, is there any way, because eventually this system, as always, you know, grow 20 years from now, is there any way to do a mirror survey or something that would be too costly, where we would have some of the history that we can maintain it?
What's the
We did
redundancy in the
this.
systems?
We did that. No, what it is you have an off-site server just in case there's a catastrophe when you have one in the district that you have, you know, for,
Well, I mean, we can certainly consider that. That's what, years ago, before we moved our servers to BOCES, that's, we used to have in-house.
Right.
The problem is that as the software upgrades come in, it becomes very costly for the district
Yeah, that's what-
to upgrade the hardware. So what we ran into and why we made the decision to move the servers to Nassau BOCES was the fact that, number one, the Eastern Suffolk BOCES was no longer supporting Pennsylvania.
Right.
So we were kind of the only orphans left, including Sachem. And Fortunately, we had 6 or 7 districts in Nassau County that were still using Pentimation, and we were able to move the data there. So rather than spend literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to upgrade our infrastructure and our servers, it was much more cost effective to move the servers over, to let BOCES manage the data.
But equipment has become less costly, so.
This is true.
That might be beneficial for down the road, but that's, you know, like.
Off-site.
You need something off-site, you need something where Pentimation obviously is going out in BOCES, so if he had it here, he could still keep it
Right.
and look back on the history that you do need, and then financial. We did that, we did Mirror Service, the website that we have, so.
So my guess is that's probably something that's gonna have to be set up in a conversion to maintain the detail and the history from Pentimation to Finance Manager.
Okay.
So, believe me, if I could postpone this project, I would postpone it.
I definitely know, it's a terrible project.
It's probably tremendous time consuming and the cost.
It's
Unexpected
it's a lot
cost
of
is,
work. It's a lot of work, even in the best cases.
but the unexpected cost is probably most.
You know,
It's
it's
probably the biggest part that came out of.
right. We normally had, last year, we had $500,000 unexpected cost of a family that was put on, you know, social services.
Well, you know, unexpected
And they
cost.
get billed back to us, and we didn't know who they were, and get billed for $500,000.
Well,
We have-
I mean, you're measuring two different things. One's software that we're familiar with, and the other is a
But
family that
they're
we're not
all,
familiar with. So
all part of running this.
Yeah, but I think there's a very important thing to state here also, is that, you know, it's frustrating for the business office as well, is that we went through a budget process, and budget was voted on in June, and we had no knowledge of this until after the fact. So we didn't have an opportunity to plan in the 14-15 school year that this was happening. We received a letter from BOCES at the end of June saying that we're no longer supporting Pentimation.
Work it out.
Okay? And, you know, that's.
We're working out, if I work out with BOCES, we have to spend about $120,000 with BOCES. I mean, it's kind of like, they knew about it, BOCES gave us the Pentimation. By the way, the software that we were supporting, and we're long supporting, now we want you to spend additional resources for this new software that we're also going to support.
John, that's with any software that we look at.
It's-
It's a one-time upfront license fee.
I understand that's
And
what
then
we're working.
there's the users, so whether you look at Finance Manager, when you look at WinCap, when you look at any other software program out there, you're gonna be encountering
I
the
don't think a
same.
lot of people understand how BOCES work.
Was WinCom the same price?
I'm not certain. I'm not certain. We really looked, Tom, on needs of the district and what would fulfill the needs of the district.
Okay.
And the experience that, again, in talking with my colleagues and their familiarity with WinCap versus Finance Manager, Finance Manager was hands down the recommendation from the majority of the districts across New York State.
BOCES was aware, of it, and they were negligent in telling the district that this is going to be phased out, and when it does phase out, you're going to have to purchase
Well,
another different
you know,
software.
the other thing is, in all fairness,
It's
to
frustrating.
BOCES, is that the,
Sitting here as a board member saying that BOCES is, they got us over a barrel.
but you know, Pentimation, again, is not that familiar. It's a great program, very, very comprehensive program, not the easiest program to use, okay? But also, they're not that familiar with New York State reporting. So for the reports that we have to prepare for civil service, payroll reports, personnel reports, the reporting to the state, it takes a lot of manipulation of the files and the data to get what we need out. And what's been happening is the cost has been increasing significantly. Even Pentimation's been going through BOCES. So, you know, BOCES would have to pass that cost along to the school districts as well. So it's coming to the point where it's not cost effective for BOCES or a school district to continue in that fashion.
But wouldn't it be fair to say that BOCES should have notified us earlier?
I would agree, John, but you know, It's dealing with Nassau BOCES. They made a business decision because of things that, you know, they're dealing with. Keep in mind, this is not Eastern Suffolk BOCES. This is Nassau BOCES. And the only reason why we're with Nassau is because Easton wouldn't handle this at all. Easton threw us away 6, 7 years ago. So we were scrambling back then to find a home.
And we pay a nice administration fee for them on an annual basis.
Yeah, and it's all subject to BOCES aid, you know, that works. But Tom, I will get you figures on what
I mean, I just think we should have some sort of format, petitioning the board, you know, what the current state is, what the needs are, and, you know, pros and cons of choosing one software or the other. This way we have this document.
happen to put together something for you.
Any other items for board discussion? No?
There is. Yes.
Mr. Cooley?
If we wanted to start a new sport or club or something like that, how do we go about doing something?
Budget. There's fees to section 11, there's obviously equipment, there's, I guess you're talking about fences?
Yeah, I saw the letter.
Yes. There's official fees, there's buses. We offer a lot of sports.
They're actually doing an exhibition, sorry. Tuesday, gentlemen?
13 Tuesday.
This Saturday.
Well, the invite is for open
13.
session, but the invite is for Tuesday. If anybody can't make it Tuesday, there's a competition.
There's a competition with Sayville students in Farmingville at 1055 Portion Road, about 10 minutes from here.
What's the sport?
It's fencing.
Oh. That's good sport.
And if you come to our practice, or to the competition, I'm sure you will all get the point.
That's gonna stink to me.
That's very sharp.
No, but that's just.
Touche.
You decide to do that.
I can have Dennis work up the cost.
One more time?
That was much easier than lacrosse. To get lacrosse in the school was like, that was tough.
Really?
In lacrosse into it?
Say no? Oh my goodness. Events happened with that, started,
Wasn't here.
yeah, you were here.
I'm sure it was fun. So I moved to say. Okay, and being that there's no other board discussion, we're now gonna open up the community discussion. If you don't mind, can you please step up to the podium? And although you're not required to do so, please state your name so we can address you. Gentleman in the back.
Hi, Ken Grant.
You mind stepping up, Ken?
If I need to. So, mostly since you brought it up, I just wanted to introduce the two coaches for the fencing club that started. And since we sent out invitations for you all to come down, if you had any questions, this would be a great time.
How many students we have in it right now?
40.
Guys, come on up.
Come on up. Well, I guess tell us a little bit about the first one.
How you guys doing? I'm the head coach, Anthony Matera, and I'm Robert Moore, the assistant coach. So we have about 40 students in the program. We have 28 boys and 12 girls. They're ranging from 7th to 11th grade.
I'm going to ask a question that, I don't know, is there a weight class?
No, there's no weight class. No.
That's it.
Just ask that question.
Short, tall, it's not UFC or boxing. So
Actually, depending on your physical attributes, you actually are selected for different weapons because they require different types of movement. But we have fencers that are 4'3", 4'5". We have fencers that are 6'1", 6'2".
The downside is we are honoring the kids.
You know what?
We are arming the kids.
Now, tell me something, are they competing at this particular point?
Yeah, they are. We organized 2 scrimmages. There's one this Saturday at one of my facilities, and then there's one on Martin Luther King Day at my facility against Sayville Hills East, their club, and Center Reach Fencing Club.
Sayville Hills has
A lot of the.
Although technically they can't compete, I don't know the terminology, at the level where they have.
Section, you're not allowed to compete as a team, as a scholastic team, but as a club. A lot of the schools actually have their own separate clubs for additional practices, so you can compete on a club level. And that's what we are right now. Anthony actually started last year when there was some interest from some parents. He said, why don't you give us some demonstrations? And we've done about 4 sets of demonstrations as they care at the middle school and at the high school. And out of that, we ended up with like 55 to 60 interested students, middle school and high school that came in. And now we have 40 students that have been practicing, learning about the sport for the last
Since
2
November
months.
10th is when we started. So
providing their own uniforms and
we self-funded all the startup equipment. So anything that we would need to compete scholastically is already covered, actually.
Do you have any idea how many other districts have teams or?
There's 16 teams in Suffolk County.
From
There's-
8 schools.
From 8 schools, they have both a boys team and a girls team. So Newfield, Center Reach, Half-Hollow Hills, Ward Melville, Walt Whitman, Huntington, Brentwood. So these are,
now, are they school teams or are they clubs?
they're scholastic teams. I coached at Center Reach for about 6 years, and I've sent a bunch of kids to college for the sport, like on scholarships. My biggest achievement was last year I sent the kid to Princeton, actually, for the sport. And then my first year I sent a kid to Cooper's Union, which is a very good engineering school, which is a full ride as well. So those are my biggest accomplishments.
Yeah.
Now you may also ask, okay, what's in it for us? Now I'm an ex-coach. I was a head coach over at Stevens Tech, where I learned how to fence. I was a coach there for 20 years. So coached Cooper High School in Connecticut. And I'm a fencing parent. I've got 2 kids that fence. And my goal eventually is to get them to get to the point where they can get scholarships, so it'll be less burden on me and my family. But they also do very good academically. I mean, I know as a school board, you talk about what we can do for our children as students, okay? And that's your responsibility here. And we found this to be a great opportunity. Anthony actually coached not only at Center Reach, but he's also gone around to different schools, districts in this area, like Sachem, as well as, I think you tried Connecticut, but there was no interest there. Just that the interest was so intense here that we had this opportunity to present ourselves. And I think under the sponsor, or the Mr. Gillette, is it your athletic director?
Mr. Maloney.
Maloney, I mean, he was nice enough because actually he knew Anthony from Center Reach.
When he was at Middle Country.
Middle
before
Country,
he came
yeah.
to Sayville.
And he said, there's a chance that maybe you can see if there's interest here at Sayville.
This just started within the past year or two, or just?
November.
This November.
Last
Quite
year?
quite an interest.
40, so that's a.
Yeah. We originally had about 400 kids. We had 200 boys and 200 girls when we did the demos that liked the demo, but out of that interest, only about 40, we originally had like 50 kids that were ready to commit, and then now we have 40 that have been sticking with the program, so it's been really great so far.
Like, you guys compete against, the students compete against the other schools, and I guess it's bracketed or?
Yeah, it's just scrimmages, it doesn't count for anything, but
Until we
until we become a scholastic
scholastic
team, then we can compete in the county championships, the Long Island championships, and then all the other scholastic teams.
Now, Anthony does have his own business. He runs a fencing academy because of his passion for the sport. I happen to be a fencing parent with 2 kids that attend it. And I said, oh, if only Connecticut, which is where I come from, has it, they don't. So I go to fencing academy. Now, he had this opportunity, and he actually asked me to volunteer. Would you like to volunteer? I said, I love it. I used to help before. And I said, if we can give back to the community by having kids involved in fencing, it's going to pay for itself because they're going to get scholarships.
Yeah.
And there are over $5 million in scholarships offered every year, mostly top-tier schools. You know, Ivy Leagues, they all have fencing teams. And if you're a great academic, but you need that edge to get past the other qualified candidate, fencing will help you.
Sayville sends a lot of their students to top schools. That's one thing.
Teaches a different category of student too.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the football jock or something like that.
Absolutely.
Most of them, if you look at it, even some of the students that we have now, you might not see them as athletes, but I don't know what you know about fencing. You say it's not off the
anyone
chandelier,
ever
it's not up in the
Three Musketeers,
Right,
right?
it's not that. The analogy we use, it's a physical game of chess.
Yeah.
The strategy, you got to think 2 or 3 steps ahead. You've got to be great physical cardio condition to do it. And if you look at, just go on YouTube, you look at some of these videos, those guys are in great shape.
I've seen that say that when my son was in college.
Oh, okay.
His
Did you-
school has it.
Oh, the school had, okay.
Yeah.
I'm actually very envious of the students that are there now. I mean, I have a middle schooler, I have 2 middle, I have an 8-year-old and a 11-year-old right now in fencing. I started when I was in college. I learned the sport in college, I didn't have it in high school. So what happens is I got good enough to become captain of the team, and my coach actually said, you know what, I made the NCAAs, which is the national championships, didn't go past this prelims, but he says, if you want to continue, you could probably make the Olympic team. He said, and I said, how long will that take? Another 12 years. I had to work. I went to engineering school, I paid for it.
You didn't want to stay in school that long.
And I never got a scholarship. But I think what I learned from it and what I shared with students I've coached in the past, not only in high school but university levels, if you can do it early enough, like middle school, start, go to high school, great opportunities in college, and also it's actually a sport for life, like tennis and golf. You can continue fencing. I'm 60, I still fence, okay? But what happens is that a lot of people say, oh, I don't believe it. Well, you watch and it keeps you in great shape, it keeps your mind going too, so it's great all around for everyone.
If I can add, I have 2 aspiring football players. Nothing wrong with football.
They want a fence, too.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but I think it's, so obviously my daughter's in it. I don't know, since she's in 11th going into 12, that it would really could benefit us if this became a sport in terms of scholarships. There's not a lot of runway left for her before she goes off to college. But part of it drives me because of my children, but part of it is, I just look at the community and I say, you know, we're supposed to be a top achieving district. We don't have Latin, remember, I have a gripe about that, right? We should be teaching, we should be doing more of those type of things, that if we're really a top tier school, we should also be including these type of things, and fencing as well.
It's a nice sport.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
With a bunch of families and amongst the neighbors and whatnot, that there is talk of the Princeton plan coming back again for the next year. And no, there's not talk
Well, there may
Well,
be
there might be talk, but no, it's not happening.
for 2015, 2016.
That's correct.
Okay, well, thank you for telling me that.
Well, those,
Have a good full night's sleep. I'd like to say thank you. It is something that's very dear to my heart. I know it's very dear to many residents of Sayville's hearts. It's just something we feel very strongly about. I know that a lot of people came out last year at the end of the year when the budget failed.
Yeah.
I know you got all our letters. I never gave you all the petitions because you cleared it up right away at that meeting. But these were just obtained in a handful of hours by a handful of people. I know if given more time,
you can leave us with the petition.
we could quadruple, more than quadruple this, but, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want
You wanna drop the
give us
petition
the
off?
petition? Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. I'll respond to that, because the rumors came from me, since I'm on the efficiency committee. I just want everyone to know, the efficiency committee meetings are videotaped, right?
No. The
Wasn't
first
there a
one-
camera there the last time?
First one is, that's it.
They're not videotaped, so that people can't see what was discussed.
Correct.
They can't see that the
Was the
entire,
Princeton plan discussed at the meeting? Yes.
was it heavily, heavily suggested and the only
Not-
alternative
not
to our budget
suggested.
concerns?
Absolutely no. You're wrong.
Not videotaped. Maybe they should be.
Okay.
I think I just need some clarification from the board. Did you not decide as a board that you are putting forth the bond that includes everything that was proposed at our previous board meeting?
No, well, you were at the last one, and
Yeah, I think
More
we're
than
very
19.
confused here, because I think as a district, we've been attending these meetings regularly, and every month we come, it's tabled for more discussion. we've discussed it, you've discussed it. I'm not quite sure where we stand and when this bond is, when we're gonna decide as a board collectively, what are we doing? If we're not putting up the bond and something needs to come out, we need to hear that from the board.
You would just, excuse me.
Can I just finish
No,
my?
let me just say something to that.
But I didn't answer the question yet, I'm just making
You
some
just asked
statements.
if
Not-
we did
Can I just
decide
finish?
tonight. We
Oh,
did
I know,
decide.
but I'd like to just finish my statement. So each month we've come, I think since October, November, December, January. It's been 4 months. Each month, same questions are raised. We're gonna look into it. I think as a community, we have to make a decision here. It's been 4 months. If we put the bond up the way the committee decided and proposed to you the first time, and the district votes it down, then we come back to the table and we can start taking out other things. Put the bond up in what we have and what the committee that you developed thought was best for this community. And I think at this point, it's been 5 months now, and we've been coming. And I really feel like you have to make a decision now. When are we making a decision?
Can I respond?
Joey,
Can I respond?
You just said, no, you didn't make
No,
a decision.
I said,
We
can
did
I
make a
respond?
decision.
before, that's
I-
why
I would
that's
like to
what came
respond.
out.
Mr. Cooley, go ahead.
The committee is an advisory committee, okay? It advises the board, makes a recommendation. The process is the board then evaluates that. We only meet, officially twice a month. It does take time to go through that. We have questions, we go back and forth. Today, we just decided on the amount of the bond.
And what was that?
That was a 19.2.
So you decided on the amount, but we didn't decide on what items are going
No,
to be
no,
there?
that's the proposal.
So
that was
that's what I'm
given
saying,
to
that
us.
includes the turf field that we,
I
that
think
was.
that under the December 11th meeting, which not many people had attended,
Okay.
and at that, we had a
We went through everything on
proposal,
December.
We went, I was here.
the
I
proposal
heard.
from the administrator.
Everything on that.
So everything
Yeah.
on that is what is going to be presented to this community, including the turf field.
Yes.
Okay. And I know,
One
Mr.
turf
Cooley, you had said $17 million was the number you were looking at. So I'm just curious, as a resident, if that was what you thought as a board member, what were you looking to take out of that you wanted to drop to $17 million?
Two things would be the air conditioning at the old junior high, maybe the air conditioning at the other schools. You could take out $2 million.
Right, and we know that that $2 million really over the course of the 15 years equates to about $7 a month, probably per resident.
Yeah.
And that would not be something I would think that we would want to recommend when we know that they're
But
needed.
it also equates to two to three teachers that we could use at the elementary school. That's what I'm weighing here between the two decisions.
And I would say as a community member, I absolutely agree with Mr. Belmonte that you need to keep the two separate.
They're not separate, they come out of the same pocket.
So, that's all I have to say,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I appreciate your interest, but there is a process, and that's what this whole process is. We have to go through it.
I
And
think
as
it's
a
just
board,
been
we
so
come to a
long.
decision.
I think we just have to, I really just
We don't
think
know
as
what's
a
going
community,
on.
we really truly respect everyone who serves on this board. And that's why we come out here every month to support the board, to support our administrators, to support our teachers. But I think we just have to be very transparent and very clear. We just want to hear yes or no, because you know why we've been here, and I don't think it's been really clear to us. Are you putting the board up? Is the board putting the bond up with the turf field? And I want a public yes or no.
Yes.
You said
One.
yes, that's what we were looking
One.
for, thank you.
One field, that's why I asked earlier, what did you take out? Because I was not at the December 11th meeting, I had to work.
Well, we've been in every
You know
meeting.
what, we've
It's
had-
just
we've
like
had-
no one's giving us a yes or a no answer.
We've
so what's
had
going on?
many meetings concerning this bond. There's been board members at PTA meetings. We've been trying to get out as much as possible to inform the community with as much information as possible. There has been a tremendous amount of discussion on turf fields, been a tremendous amount of discussion about boilers, roofs, etc. At the last board meeting, which was December, the first Thursday in December, or second Thursday in December, the administrators made a proposal which included the turf field, as well as the air
And it was
conditioning units
tabled
and
for
the
this
boilers.
meeting.
And that is part of the $19 and change million bond referendum that we approve it tonight.
Okay,
That's
so
a recommendation.
when is that, we're just
So
curious as to
Thursday?
when you're going to then look to put that up for a vote?
I said,
They think that
with the,
with the budget vote and
With
the
the
budget
budget,
report
you're going
election.
to do
That's
it
when
on this,
we're off.
okay.
So,
Didn't know.
and I'm sure going forward, with the changes being made at the buildings, I'm sure we're gonna have discussions at each building, what those changes are, et cetera, and so forth.
As well as the general public.
As well as, thank you, that as well. You know what, we want to give you as much information as possible. And
Well, I think it's important that you tell us, because then, as a community, our job is now to let the community know that if they support that, they need to vote yes for this bond, because this is what it includes.
there is one caveat though, because it's not official until we vote on it. okay?
Absolutely.
And that's not until next week, okay?
So next Thursday's board meeting, you're voting on it publicly.
Yes.
But if you've already decided, why not just vote now?
We can't.
Yeah.
We have to follow process.
Procedurally.
There's protocol in this process.
Yeah, there are certain legal things you have to have written. So it's-
I mean,
And I'm sure there'll be something on the website announcing all the
And next Thursday, what time is that meeting?
8 o'clock. We start executive session at 7, we'll hopefully get out at 8, and we'll go from there.
I'd just like to add an addendum. I didn't hear what was said earlier when I was handing my petitions there. Okay, so I'm hearing just a couple of mixed reviews here about whether or not the Princeton plan is like truly not going to happen, or if it's just giving me a soft answer. I will continue to fight and continue to have my petition signed. It's something I feel strong about, and I know many people do too. So I don't want to seem naive, I don't want to seem disrespectful, but I would like to know, similar to what this woman just said, I would like to be given a true answer.
The Princeton plan will not take place next school year, probably not the following school year. My guess is we would close an elementary school in around 2018-19 before we'd even have the Princeton plan.
Okay, thank you.
I think the community came out strongly at what their feeling was about the Princeton plan, as Dr. Shaw said.
Just because it was discussed at an efficiency committee, and it was discussed because there are many other school districts that do that, and that's part of what we discuss at the efficiency committee. What are other people doing? That was not endorsed by the committee.
2 hours on the Princeton plan.
Yeah,
No
that's-
other
that's
options.
normal.
2 hours on the Princeton plan.
It's a hot topic.
It's a hot topic.
It shouldn't be
Obviously.
discussed. If it's off the table, and don't discuss it.
No, but we still
We're not
have,
just-
we still have a class size issue, so that's why it's.
Huh?
There were other options discussed too, other than Princeton.
Okay, as you can see, with the varied information that everyone's giving, that's why it's just still fresh on everyone's mind. And again, with all due respect, I'd just like to know what young children in the district, I'm a new mom to the district, and I just would like to see the
The
best of my
Princeton
children.
plan has been discussed since about 1980.
That's what I've heard.
So
Way before
I
I-
really, way before, and I'm sure will be discussed long after this. It has been discussed because of the demographics of our community.
And if the governor's budget still includes the GPA adjustment, which reduces our state aid, we still have a problem. That's why, I mean, we need people to call the governor's office and tell them to end the GPA adjustment.
And we,
That's really the issue, is we don't
and we have
have the
been
money.
doing that for you. I know that the board has asked us to do that again. The signs are up all over town.
Right.
We're calling, sending emails.
Appreciate it.
But we ask that you then, think about our request then to keep the Princeton plan out of our
Exactly.
district.
We have.
I definitely do.
The Princeton plan will not take place next year. I swear, there's no way it's gonna take place next year, unless something catastrophic happens. Which I don't see that happening.
Just not next year.
Right, just not, I understand what you're saying, just not next year.
Well,
Yes.
you know.
Oh, it's okay. I'll just keep coming back. I'll just keep coming back.
As I said, this has been discussed since 1980. I can't say what's gonna happen in 10 years.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to stand up and talk about the bond issue.
Yes.
And I've heard, you're going to put the turf field on the bond issue. And I'm going to not speak in opposition to it, because we've all discussed this before. Now, these people really don't know me because my kids are out of the district and I'm not coaching anymore. I really think because of the fact that it's an east-west field, It's a detriment, especially, not so much for the soccer kids, but for lacrosse kids in the spring. Small ball, sunlight coming in your eyes in the afternoon, really, really tough. I know, and John and I, we just discussed putting lights on the field. Putting lights on the field, I think it's a great idea, but early, we start early. I mean, first game's like March 15th.
Right.
You freeze your fanny off on that field on March 15th, That's one.
They freeze it.
That's number one. Number two, I know you're gonna do one of the roofs. Have you looked into an option for putting solar on a building?
Yeah.
With the option of a third party paying for it?
I couldn't say we looked at that.
Okay, because you guys know me, there are firms that are willing to do that.
We're looking at, and actually Mr. Cangelosi
That's
is
something we
actually.
will be looking at.
Okay, if you need me, just call me. And last but not least, I know this will be a sore subject. I really, really believe that when you do this and this bond issue passes, I really believe that you guys should hire a construction manager. And I'm not looking for a job. I'm not looking to do anything, but I think it's penny wise, pound foolish. I really believe that you should hire a construction manager. And that's my 2 cents, and you can throw me the hell out of here. That's it. Thanks, everybody.
Out of here, Pat.
All right.
Thank you, Pat.
Oh, last but not least, as a veteran, thank you for what you did.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, Pat. All right, any other committee input? If not, we're gonna move on. We have 2 items, new business, new business.
Just one quick question. I thought they were coming up, so
No,
I
no,
was waiting for them.
I moved on.
Can I just one question? The veterans discount, I noticed a little bit of discrepancy, and I just wanted to clarify. I think in the presentation was $56 approximately household, but yet at the PTA council meeting, I don't know if it's the minutes or Dr. Schrottner had said in their minutes that it was $160 per household. So is that because there's a range of different ones you could have approved?
I can explain that.
Yeah.
When the veterans exemption first came out, and there was little or no detail of what was surrounding it, we worked with the assessor's office, and we were trying to get a handle on what the possible switch in assessed valuation might be. The assessor had determined at the time that there was just under $11 million worth of veteran properties within Sayville School District in total. Okay, that's currently
Total without the discount applied.
Right, that's currently identified on the town of Islip's tax rolls for Sayville community. So from that, the assessor made a judgment call and said if $5 million of that switches, so what would be the impact on the tax rate? So if $5 million switches on our assessed value, it would carry about $160 a piece for each particular homeowner. So that's where, in the very early stages of the game, that's where the 160 came out. So since it has been further refined, and the assessor was able to refine his figures, get a better handle on who was eligible for alternative exemptions and who's eligible for income exemptions, we were able to refine that number. Okay. Now you keep in mind that that's based on, the $56 is based on the state basic maximum. As I indicated in the presentation, it goes up to a maximum that's like really, really high. Okay. If the district was to consider that particular maximum, it'd be a swing of about $256 for each resident, something that wouldn't be financially doable. So, so as we say, when there's a range of these things, the basic maximum brings you in a range of $56 a household.
And they're getting
Beyond that is going to be additional.
Are they getting a lesser discount though because of any changes or?
It's not a lesser discount, it's whether it's war or combat.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be,
It depends on
15%.
what they qualify for.
And
It is.
And if they apply, of course.
disability, right.
Okay.
And they have to be eligible. So
Right.
as we said, that $56 figure, that's the max. That's, realistically, it'll probably be less than that.
Or not, depending on,
Well,
but it was,
it's gonna be
the
more.
160 was a
the
large
same-
figure compared to 56. I
The
just
same
wanted
numbers I
to,
heard the same.
yeah, I just didn't understand.
And if the board decided to adopt a higher exemption, it would have been closer to the 160. But the state basic maximum is, you know, at the low end of the scale.
And that's what the other, most of the other districts.
And that's what all the other
approved as well.
districts that we
Okay,
put on there.
that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. We want to move on to, thank you for the community input first of all, new business other, 9-1 to 9-2. I need a motion, please. Wow, goes quick. Tom and, no, Kendall, okay. Discussion? It's all right, you'll get the next one. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? I need a motion to adjourn. Thanks for coming, everybody. Have a great evening and a good weekend.
Thank you.